Regarding Russia's foreign policy in the Greater Middle East, it is important to ask how the normalization of the UAE and Bahrain's relationships with Israel will play out. Similar to China, Russia has so far responded with ambiguity to the Abraham Accords signed in Washington in mid-September 2020. These two Gulf Arab states' formalization of ties with Tel Aviv leaves Moscow in a somewhat delicate geopolitical position. Russia maintains strong relations with the UAE, Bahrain and Israel, and the Kremlin has no problem in principle with these three countries having full-fledged diplomatic ties with each other. Yet Moscow's partnership with Iran is at an all-time high, and Vladimir Putin's government has also invested in growing relations with Palestinian factions, including Hamas in Gaza. These factors give Moscow incentive to avoid appearing outrightly supportive of the Abraham Accords. At the same time, Russia has concerns about how the normalization of the UAE and Bahrain's relations with Israel could affect its position in the Middle East. As Russia has worked to establish itself as a rising actor in the Arab world and a go-to power for mediation between warring countries and groups, the fact that the US brokered the Abraham Accords does not sit well with the Kremlin. If the normalization of the UAE and Bahrain's ties with Israel ultimately benefits Washington's reputation in the Gulf sub-region, Russia will perceive that to be a negative development that undermines its narratives about the failures of US foreign policy. Most likely, as Russia continues to address the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis, officials in Moscow will emphasize the US's failure to bring the Palestinians into the process that led to Abu Dhabi and Manama's opening of formal relations with the Jewish state. The Russian message to the Palestinians, Israelis, Americans, and the wider international community is that without resolving the Palestinian question, there can be no genuine peace in the Middle East.